canoe struck something with a dull thud, the wood creaking under the impact, nearly tossing them both overboard. It was a small island, a handful of dark rocks and damp sand rising from Lake Eller, already much closer to the eastern shore. The cold air smelled of rotting algae and salt, the biting wind carrying the low sound of waves licking at the edges. Kale quickly reached out, catching Leora's unsteady body before she could tumble out of the boat, her fingers grabbing his arm in reflex. They disembarked, their feet sinking into the cold, wet sand. Darkness swallowed them, making it nearly impossible to see. But there was beauty in it, raw and silent, in the indistinct outline of stones reflecting the star-studded black sky. Leora stepped firmly onto the ground, her blonde hair clinging to her damp face, followed by Kale, who wobbled as he tried to steady himself. Something caught his attention at the center of the island, a long, straight silhouette like a spear rising from the earth, nearly invisible in the shadows. He reached out, hesitant, unsure of what he was seeing, and felt through the cold air until his fingers brushed something solid. A marker? It was impossible to tell in the darkness, but Kale wrapped his hands around the shape and pulled hard, feeling its weight shift from the muddy ground into his arms. The wood was rough, warm to the touch, and the instant he lifted it, something clicked within him. A silent snap, like a dormant part of his soul stirring awake. Instinctively, he knew the object had been there waiting for him, an echo resonating in his bones. He shook his head, brushing the thought aside. Whatever it was, maybe it could help steer the canoe, or perhaps defend them. Before he could inspect it, a sharp cry split the air, followed by the sound of something splashing into the water, and he jumped toward the noise. He found Leora at the lake's edge, her legs half submerged, dark water splashing around. She was fine, laughing between gasps, having tripped over a wooden post lodged in the ground, hidden by the shadows as she wandered about, caught up in the music. They both laughed, a light sound that carried the last threads of the childhood friendship still lingering in their hearts, a thread of warmth against the cold of the night.
Kale, I'm soaked and it's so cold.
She teased, pretending to shiver, her teeth gently chattering. Kale rubbed her arms briskly, his hands feeling the tremor of her chilled skin, and took off his torn shirt so she could dry herself, the damp fabric hanging heavy between them. He needed to make sense of what was happening. Feeling around with the new staff in hand, its solid weight guided him like a blind man with a cane. The wood replied, striking something, a dry, hollow sound that echoed softly across the island. Kale stepped closer, his heart quickening, and crouched to investigate. His hands found a rough stump, and with his fingers, he traced what felt like braided ropes, stretched and anchored here and there, subtly vibrating at his touch.
Look, it's a bridge,
he said, his excited voice cutting through the silence.
I'm looking, Kale, but I don't see a thing,
she replied, her playful tone tinged with a muffled laugh. He reached out toward her voice, and Leora took his hand, her fingers cold and wet against his, while she extended the other hand to return his soaked shirt, the cloth dripping onto the sand. Hand in hand, they followed the ropes, their fingers intertwined and clenching tightly against the swaying of the unstable bridge. The lake surrounded them, a black void swallowing all light, the damp air clinging to their skin like a cold mist. The planks creaked under their feet, the groan of the ropes mingling with the soft lapping of waves below, each step a trial of balance in the dark. It was then that a different note shattered the serene melody that had lingered in the background, sharp, dissonant, like a scream caught in a thread of sound that made the air vibrate. A white light ignited on the eastern shore, a pure glow that floated slowly toward them, dancing like a fairy, its flickering trail streaking against the sky. It drifted until it reached the tip of the staff Kale held. The moment the light touched it, he knew what was in his hands. A thick, heavy staff, an artifact that felt pulled from myth, its warm surface pulsing beneath his fingers as if it were alive, time-worn runes coiling around it, glowing faintly in the white radiance.
What is that?
Leora asked, only now noticing the staff in her friend's hands. Kale didn't answer. Maybe it was just the wonder of a child's mind enchanted by a new toy, but something deeper whispered inside him, an echo that stirred his soul. It felt as if the staff was holding him too, for all the sense that could make. The truth was, he couldn't have answered even if he tried. The path now revealed itself, clear and lit, the white light dancing on the staff like a living flame. Kale raised it high, the glow cutting through the darkness, guiding each step as he helped Leora balance on the narrow boards, the creak of the ropes beneath their weight blending with the wind that moaned softly across the lake. The lake whispered below, the waves lapping against the supports with a slow, hypnotic rhythm, while the damp air clung to Leora's wet clothes, bringing a chill that raised goosebumps on Kale's exposed skin. Gradually, the eastern shoreline came into view on the horizon, a jagged silhouette against the star-speckled sky, the constellations pulsing in silence. The melody that had guided them had faded, leaving only the harsh song of cicadas cutting through the night, mixed with the groan of the ropes beneath their uncertain feet and the occasional sighs of discomfort. At the end of the bridge, when the staff's glow finally reached the shore, a figure emerged from the shadows. A chubby boy, his flushed cheeks gleaming in the light, wide brown eyes filled with disbelief as he stared at them, his mouth hanging open as if the words had slipped away. Kale planted the staff in the ground, the white glow casting light over the boy ahead, the brightness dancing across the wet planks of the swaying bridge. The cold air of the eastern shore cut like blades, heavy with moisture and the earthy scent of damp pebbles. Leora squeezed his hand, her fingers cold but firm against Kale's rough palm, as she stepped forward, her blonde hair dripping water that shimmered like liquid silver in the staff's glow. The chubby boy blinked rapidly, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand as if trying to erase a dream, his wrinkled brown tunic fluttering in the gusty wind.
Who are you?
He asked, his hoarse voice wavering, a puff of steam escaping his lips into the cold night air. His gaze locked on Kale. How can someone so young have eyes so heavy? Caius wondered as he spoke.
How? How did you even get across?
Kale narrowed his eyes, the staff steady in his hand, its light pulsing faintly as he studied the stranger with a hard stare.
We're from Vanth.
He said, short and sharp.
Are you one of them? The ones in black armor?
His voice weighed down by exhaustion and a mistrust as heavy as lead. Caius took a step back, nearly tripping over a loose stone, his hands raised in panic, his flushed cheeks trembling slightly.
No. I'm Caius from Zarenth. My father, he's over there. He was the one who sent the light.
He pointed behind him with a trembling gesture, where shadows stirred on the shoreline. Leora let go of Kale's hand and stepped forward, her shy smile cutting through the tension like a ray of sunlight breaking a storm.
The light? The one that danced like a fairy? It was beautiful. Did you see it coming toward us?
Her voice, light and curious, rose like a song, and Caius relaxed his shoulders, a goofy grin blooming across his round face, his brown eyes shining with a glimmer of awe as he watched the girl step out from behind the other.
I did see it. My father said it was to guide someone, but you're just kids.
He laughed, a warm, genuine sound that echoed across the pebble-strewn shore, defying the cold that bit at the air.
You look like you walked out of a story, soaking wet, with that glowing staff and all.
Kale frowned, the weight of the staff warm against his palm, the redwood pulsing as if responding to his touch.
I wish it were a story. But sadly it's real. We're running.
The light flickered, as if it sensed the heaviness in his words, and he lifted his gaze, fixed on Caius.
How did you know where we were?
Caius stopped laughing, his eyes widening again, but now with a spark of understanding that twisted his face.
Running? Then you're the friends he said would come?
He spun around, shouting hoarsely over his shoulder.
Father, they're here.
Welcome,
Declared Auren, emerging from the shadows of the shore with steady steps, his red cloak billowing behind him like a tattered banner in the wind. He already knew the news his son had brought, his gaze carrying a calm certainty as he approached, a dry blanket in his calloused hands. He offered it to Leora with a gentle gesture, the thick wool smelling of earth and warmth. Without hesitation, the girl wrapped herself in the fabric, her trembling body finding relief from the cold that had stiffened her limbs, her teeth still chattering in a soft staccato.
you'd be better off drying yourself before soaking the blanket, girl,
Said Auren, a kind smile curling his lips, his wrinkled eyes shining with a tenderness that contrasted with his hardened posture.
There's a change of clothes in my pack. Go behind those rocks over there and get changed.
He added, pointing toward a pile of belongings near a broad stone. Leora, a wide smile stretching across her chattering teeth, gave a quick nod of thanks, her wet hair swinging and her bare feet leaving tiny prints in the damp sand as she made her way to the spot Auren had pointed out. Auren then turned to Kale, his brown eyes fixed on the boy for several seconds, as if trying to fit pieces of an old puzzle together. His gaze dropped to the staff in Kale's hand, the redwood pulsing with a faint glow, then returned to his eyes, nearly in disbelief.
14 winters, if I'm not mistaken?
Kale shrank slightly, his chest tightening with a mix of confusion and fear. Why did everyone seem to know who he was?
13, sir.
He corrected politely, his voice low but steady.
And thank you for your help. I don't know how you did all that, but we'd be in trouble if it weren't for you. My name is Kale.
Too soon.
Auren muttered, the words slipping out in a hoarse whisper, an echo of the phrase that had haunted his mind ever since the raven delivered the message for help. He continued, his gaze hardening with a somber determination.
All right, Kale, let's keep this simple. All you need to know is that you're safe now. I knew your mother, and it saddens me deeply that she isn't here with you. Am I to assume the worst happened?
Kale nodded, still confused by the man's first statement. His gray eyes trembled as he held back a tear that threatened to form, the weight of his loss rising like bile in his throat. Auren didn't let him sink into sorrow. His voice cut through the silence like a gentle blade.
What we're going to do now is make sure you don't freeze or starve.
He added, his eyes shifting toward Leora, who was returning dressed in a shirt far too large for her, big enough to fit 3 of her, with sleeves hanging like crooked wings and the hem falling to her knees. The blanket was still wrapped around her narrow shoulders, and her eyes shone with relief at having shed the cold, soaked clothes.
In time.
Auren went on.
I want you to tell me everything that's happened, in full detail. That's important.
With that, he turned, his firm footsteps crunching across the pebble-strewn beach as he made his way toward the supplies, the guitar on his back humming softly with the movement. Leora, her face beginning to regain a rosy color, joined the boys, her hair still dripping beads of water that sparkled under the glow of the staff.
Much better now. But I think if I walk too fast, this shirt might just stay behind.
Her voice came out light and playful, a thread of warmth against the cold night. Caius laughed, an open, awkward sound that echoed over the quiet beach. It was impossible not to be charmed by Leora.
Sorry about that.
He replied, his eyes shining with a mix of shyness and excitement.
If I'd known such a lovely girl was coming, I'd have dressed up too, and maybe brought a gown.
The words slipped out before he could think, his cheeks flaring a deep red that clashed with the staff's pale glow. Only afterward did he realize the weight of the moment. But that was Caius, clueless, unfiltered, with a heart too light to hold back jokes. Leora blushed as well, the red rushing quickly beneath her translucent skin, contrasting with the chill's pallor. Her blue eyes dropped with a shy smile. No boy had ever spoken to her like that, and the warmth rushed to her face like an unexpected flame. Kale, on the other hand, was not amused at all. His brow furrowed, and a low grunt slipped from his throat. He turned his back, kicking loose pebbles as he walked toward Auren, the staff steady in his grip, its light flickering with every step. He needed answers, not some foolish boy making jokes.